Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to do a special selection today, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's selection comes at us from Sean. I've been following this guy for about 2 years now, and he posts a lot of guitar videos which I totally dig, and he released an album relatively recent, and the combination of genres are awesome. Now I did get a little sneak peek on this. When I pulled it up on Spotify, it has an About the Artist section, and it's a one-person project. It says, creating music that mixes my passion for Necrophagist and Blink-182. And you know what? I don't know what this is going to sound like. That is wild. Let's dive into this. Check out Spastic Heartache Affliction. This is beautiful. It's so bizarre hearing the more majory sounds of pop punk smashed up against the hanging force that we hear more in metal. The snare I'm too important. A little bit of Baroque thrown in there. Uh, I don't know that I heard anything different than any of y'all did. This asks the question, what if someone created tech death, but instead of using typical metal intervals for both the chord progression and the dyads and triads that you utilize throughout, we stuck with more of the majory pentatonic stuff you hear in pop punk. And the end result is something that simultaneously feels like I should be moshing and skanking at the same time, and I don't know how to. This is. Here's the thing. I was going to finish that sentence with bizarre, and I don't think that that is completely inappropriate. This is bizarre, 100%. This is a strange fever dream of two genres that are so far divorced from each other, it's wild that they work well together at all. I guess it's a really good showcasing that there isn't really any two styles that can't be mashed together. You just gotta figure out what kind of material and glue you need to use. Sorry, what material and adhesive you need to use to get them to work well. But at the same time, this feels like it was always designed to work. And I think that's because there's elements in here that feel like thrashy power metal at times. And the more I think about it, if power metal were technical, that's what this is. And that's already something that makes sense to me. And so, like, there is a part of it that is like a dog meowing. I'm like, this is so weird. There's another part of it. It's like, yeah, why hasn't anyone done this before? Because it makes perfect sense. Um, and so, I mean, yeah, I had a big smile on my face this whole time because it sounds so good. I'm gonna give it a listen. This comes off of an album that dropped in 2003, back in May. I gotta get this. I gotta get the whole album listened to before the year's over. There's a chance this ends up on the AOTY list. But I don't know how far the. Do I call it a gimmick? I don't know how far it's gonna take me. I think this is really interesting on a single listen. I don't know if I'm really going to enjoy a lot of it. Primarily because pop punk is something I enjoy from a distance. I like it as a spice in music. I don't mind when songs get pop punky, but I tend to enjoy it with a bit of grit and bite. And while there were moments in here that went in that direction, it never really provided a contrast. And the reason for that is because the song primarily sticks to one mode, techie, all the time. There really isn't any moment for this track to breathe, which is very necrophagist. Or, in his defense, he said he was merging necrophagist and pop punk in the style of Blink 182. And yes, mission accomplished. But one of the things about necrophagist for me is they're sort of relentless, and this leans into that very well. And it's a sound that is exhausting for me. And having that paired with a sound I generally like in smaller doses is something that works really well for 4 minutes. Does it work for. Oh, it's only 26 minutes long, though. It's kind of closer to an EP, although there are 8 tracks. It's like it's right in that border. I think based on raw definition, I would call this an LP, but it is a short LP. You know what? I'll listen to it. If I get halfway through it and I'm like, I'm good, that's fine. If I make it all the way through and it goes on the list, that's even better. I don't think there's a losing situation here. Um, but yeah, it is relentless, just consistently relentless. And it is just always. moving. The guitars are always doing something crazy. There's multiple vocal layers. If the speed and intensity in the guitars weren't enough, there's sometimes 2 to 3 vocal layers all going on at the same time. They're heavily produced. It's a sound that you either like or you don't. I think it's done in a way that exacerbates and really almost pushes to the point of parody that stereotypical pop punk vocal style, a little nasally, very forward projected, higher range, and the production oversells it to a point that becomes a bit sickeningly sweet, I guess we could call it. Which I think I just got that phrase because that's the title of track 6. This is why I usually don't have their Spotify page pulled up. I get influenced on how I talk about things. I try to have a blank screen so I can have unfiltered thoughts. But no, it is. There's nothing wrong with the sound. It's just a lot of a specific style, really pushed to a point. The other oddity that I found in here, which might actually be a benefit in some ways, is the eclectic smashing together of chord theory, references, chord references, influences might be a better word for it. I mentioned that a lot of this track is in the brighter, more major adjacent pop punk style. The note intervals, the note choices, the chord progressions we go through, it's all very pop punk. But it's not always like that. There are times when we shift into sections where we pull from spicier chords and spicier intervals. There's a lot of places in here where we use fourths, which isn't exactly a strong interval. The third is okay. The fifth is exceptionally stable. The fourth is, it's tense. We'll put it that way. And metal loves to use it. And we hear quite a bit of it in here as well. But it's always I feel, in contrast to the pop punk. If the pop punk is the standard, it's what we're in 70% of the time, the other 30% we get these little spices of the fourth. And there are a couple of Baroque segments throughout here as well. They feel out of place. If I didn't know that this was specifically merging tech death and pop punk, and it was just fast technical pop punk, which is kind of what most of it comes off as, I think that those might have been a bit more abrasive to me than they were. Knowing that Necrophagist was an influence on this and that he wanted to specifically merge tech death with pop punk, it makes sense to have the more metallic and the more classical influences in it, but they still sit a little bit outside of the pop punk realm, and given that the pop punk chords are dominant in this track, they feel like outliers. And I think it's one of those things, right? Because this is a brand new sound. And when it comes to brand new stuff, it takes time to acclimate to it. And I think that's just part of the acclimation process here, is beginning to get more familiar with the mashups of these sounds, the bright majorness of the pop punk and the darker tenserness, that's not a word, Bryan, the darker tense style of the Baroque influences and the tech death influences. I know a lot of this has been negative. It's been criticism, whether you find that to be neutral or negative. I haven't really said a lot of positive things about it, I don't think, but I think the joy on my face and the smile that I had throughout the track, I hope is positive reinforcement enough that I enjoyed my time with this. I don't really know how to speak about it in a positive manner, aside from just the sheer element of, wow, these two things are getting smashed together and it works. I don't really have much else. I don't have the vocabulary to express why I enjoyed this, because on paper, this is not really something I would enjoy. There's just, I think it's the novelty of it, which that's the word I wanted. I said gimmicky earlier and I couldn't think of a better word, but novelty, I think, is the phrase I want. It is nothing I've heard before. And it is a bit ridiculous, and the ridiculousness I think adds to some of the joy. It's fun because of it. Um, and I think that's about all I have to say on it. It's just I'm taken for such a ride. Very few things leave me flabbergasted to the point I don't have a lot to say about them. And you know, Fayence Dream, you done it. You have rendered me semi-speechless, reduced what I have to say about you, in a positive way. I think you did something so far out there. I don't have words for it. I'm gonna check out your lyrics and then we're gonna wrap this up. Well, unfortunately, I couldn't find any lyrics, even with a general web search. Spotify doesn't even have them. Usually, Spotify is pretty good about lyrics, and no. So, we're going to wrap the video up here. I greatly enjoyed the sound. Some of it broke my brain in the best kind of way. And yeah, those are my thoughts on Fayence Dream's Spastic Heartache Affliction. What are yours, though? What did you think of this mashup? Let me know your thoughts, opinions, perspectives, and anything else down in the comments section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. It takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. Alright, that wraps it up for this one. I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.